The way that we educate our children and even adults through post-secondary, but teenagers through secondary schools, and of course children through primary schools needs serious reworking. The current model is essentially one of government monopoly. And it's true that there are some alternatives, specifically private parochial schools, as well as the option of homeschooling. It's still accurate to say that we have a state monopoly on education. The reason why you don't have genuine competition is because consumers, specifically parents, are coerced into first purchasing the service of a public school through taxation. If you were compelled by state fiat to purchase a Volkswagen, it's highly unlikely, unless you were extremely wealthy, that you could purchase a alternative car, a Nissan sedan. So in this sense, and I don't have the numbers, but there's no doubt that the vast majority of people in Ontario send their children to public schools. In this sense, you have a coerced monopoly on education. And there are a number of problems with the system as it's currently designed. Now, I'm not Montessori. I don't suggest alternative models of schooling. I have some thoughts, but they're based simply on my own experiences in the school system, and I'll lay them out later on in the video. But my purview here is to examine systemic structures, not to quibble over the individual details of how the system should be, or rather, I discuss strategic implications in designing systems, not the minor tactical details of how to accomplish minute things. So my idea for reform broadly is to abolish the Ministry of Education and the school board, and to auction off the land and buildings of public schools. There is no need for the state, for the province of Ontario, or the federal government to design a new system. As a libertarian, I'm opposed to central economic planning and the nationalization of any industry. There's no need for government to solve this problem. In the absence of a solution, people, specifically through the means of the market, will solve this. The demand will create the supply for the demand for education. And let's be clear that simply because I'm an anarchist, that I want to abolish government, doesn't mean that I'm completely against everything that government has ever done. It's simply my opposition is a moral one to the idea that we can use violence and coercion and theft and extortion as a means of solving problems. I believe in morality. I believe that it's wrong to steal. I believe that it's wrong to use violence. And I think that there are no problems so serious, so severe, that they warrant the use of force. So what I like to see broadly is the elimination of the public school system. And what would result would be a flourishing, a renaissance in education. Because right now, every school in Ontario, even the so-called private alternatives, are forced to teach a specific curriculum, to teach in a certain manner. And what you have is uniformity. You've got, a homogeneous school system. And what we need, there are, say, 3 million students. Well, those 3 million individuals, they all have different needs in terms of how they can be educated. They're not, they're not all the same. What they need is unique approaches. And what we have, we're trying to shove 3 million square or oddly shaped objects through the same round hole. And it's no surprise that, a large number of them don't make it through. And, I take a different view at the statistics where people are dropping out of schools in alarming numbers. I think it's a positive trend because, if they're dropping out to party and, lounge around, that's a bad thing. But if they're getting into the workplace, that's great because, you look at university graduates that are struggling to find a job that are, working minimum wage call center jobs and where are they at in life compared to somebody who, say, dropped out when they were 16, and worked for 10 years. They'll have much more marketable job skills and connections in business. And I think that as a society, we've become obsessed with higher education. And Walter Williams had a great article a month ago on LewRockwell.com about how this isn't always the greatest idea, that, some people aren't necessarily suited for higher education, and, maybe their talents aren't best utilized through a lot of abstract theoretical knowledge. So I think that if we got away from the monolithic centralized model towards, even if it was done at the local level more by school boards and if parents had the option of enrolling in a private school and not having to pay for the public school, if you had real choice and competition, what you would see is the flourishing of different teaching models. So you could have those who taught, English as a whole language, or, the phonetic approach, or I'm not a specialist in education. I'm not familiar with the various teaching methods, but instead of attempting to have everyone taught in the same manner, we could have experimentation, and then parents will be able to decide if it was working for their child. They could they could try something radically new, and trouble kids, that are disrupting the class, it could be taken out because, there's not this mandate that everybody needs to be acceptable. If your kid's not, if he's harming the ability of others to interfere, there's no need for them to be in the class. And you could have schools which focused more on specific areas, like technical colleges do. You could have schools that focused on the trades, from a younger level, and schools that focused on the arts. And we could really encourage specialization. You could have schools for those who are extremely gifted and interested in math and physics, and let them focus on that. And then I think that specialization is a beautiful thing. But so long as we're tied down to this old monolithic centralized model, you're never going to see, reform and competition and everything that could make a school system really great. But the purpose of the school system, as it's currently constructed, as it was planned and designed for, has never been to unleash the creativity of our students. No, it's a means of control, like so much that the government does. It's no surprise in my education in public schools, I was taught that capitalists are evil and greedy, and we need the great government to come in and save us. They taught me that World War II ended the Great Depression, as if blowing up a whole bunch of people and stuff is going to be good for the economy. They teach all sorts of nonsense. The vast majority of what they teach you in school is true, but that just enables them to dull your mind so that you're in this sort of passive acceptance of everything they say, and then they slip in the in their view, no doubt, noble lies, but in reality these are extremely harmful because they enable the system of control to continue. You see, the state is so evil, and so obviously evil, that it requires an intense effort in propaganda and brainwashing in order for it to exist, for it to thrive. Because if people were to think for themselves and to rationally examine the way that this organization operates, they would be up in arms in an instant. They would overthrow the government, and that is why the media and various other organizations are so tightly controlled, and why those who speak out to criticize the way things are must be ridiculed, written off, never allowed a chance to express themselves publicly. So I hope you agree with me that our school system needs reform, and in these manners. Or if you don't, feel free to respond. Let's keep it civil. I know that this is an emotional topic for many, and opponents of libertarianism are seldom entirely rational. But I do welcome comments, criticisms, questions, rebuttal videos. So feel free. And feel free to subscribe to my channel and forward me any interesting videos you might think that I'm interested in.